My name is Alex.
My name is Tora.
I'm David.
And this is a monthly anime book club style podcast where we talk about a anime that we've watched over the course of the past month. And along with occasionally discussions of what we're currently watching and other stuff in the anime news scene and that sort of thing. So, kick things off a little bit. We had an announcement of a live-action adaptation of a anime and manga coming to Netflix fairly soon, like I think this weekend. The film adaptation of City Hunter. I sent you guys the trailer earlier. Did you get a chance to watch it? I
did. Mm-hmm. I was intrigued, but I have no familiarity with that franchise, so I'd be going in completely new.
It's one of those franchises that's really easily adaptable because there aren't exactly fantastical elements.
That is true. It is much more a conventional action series. I mean, this is I did the checking. This is the 5th live-action adaptation of City Hunter so far, including the Jackie Chan live-action film, which we will cover at some point for our Lunar New Year's episode. A Korean K-drama series, which we may also cover as well, though it sounds like it has some significant changes from the source material, not just in terms of moving the location from Shinjuku to Seoul, but it may also be tonally different. There's a J-drama spin-off adaptation of the spin-off manga Angel Heart. There's a French live-action version released under the title of Nicky Larson, which is what the City Hunter anime was released in France, and then finally this one. We may possibly end up covering City Hunter adaptations twice, so we'll be on the show. So,
yeah, one of my favorite things to talk about is adaptations and the choices made in those adaptations. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little confused when you said City Hunter because initially what I remember was like, okay, yeah, that's the one set in Shinjuku. Is that the one with like all the demons? And then I remember, no, that was in fact Demon City Shinjuku.
Yeah. Which we will.
Oh, right, City Hunter, the complete opposite of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Though we will eventually end up probably covering Demon City Shinjuku as well, since in a future August episode, since that got a role-playing game adaptation. Also, the new anime season has started. A couple of titles of note that I'm watching. New season of Lightback Camp. Looks good. Looks all right. It has some weirdness with how they're doing the backgrounds for that. We have a new adaptation. We have a reboot of Spice and Wolf. And we have a new juvenile delinquent anime, Windbreaker, which is pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah. For the new season anime, really excited about the Kaiju number 8. Fantastic manga.
The first episode was great.
Yeah. So I'm super excited to, that's getting an adaptation. Fantastic. Start of the 3rd season of Konosuba. It continues to Konosuba.
It's
one of those where I'm not entirely certain that I like any of the characters, but their failures somehow are compelling.
The comparison I've heard made by, among others, Daryl Surratt of the Anime World Order podcast, describing Konosuba as like fantasy It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
That's not bad.
It runs on vibes.
It runs on vibes, and the fact that as dysfunctional as our protagonists are, thanks to the world they're in, they're not unsuccessful.
Mm.
Yep. And it also has the sense of like, all these characters are kind of scumbags, but there are scumbags. And we appreciate seeing them fail in humorous and comedic ways while still ultimately accomplishing goals that they set out to.
Yeah.
Having played D&D
the favorable
for
girls
years,
as opposed. Yeah.
having played D&D for years, there is a thin line between your character being a hero and being a war criminal. So,
Yeah. Other anime, we actually just a couple days ago went out to the theater and saw this Spy Family movie.
Code White.
Yeah, which was fantastic. I
That's so
loved it.
cute.
Yeah.
I've seen very favorable reviews of it, including one from Kotak, no, from AV Club, which had the best headline of "Spy Family Code White is a excellent outing."
It
Yes.
is an excellent outing. I said that after we saw it. We took our 8-year-old. He had a blast. It was his first time at the movie theater, actually, because previous to now we weren't sure if he could sit still for an entire film. But he did great, and he enjoyed it very much. And so did we. So it's a really good family movie because it's fun for everybody.
Oh, that's good. Other stuff that I've been watching that's somewhat anime related. I did finish watching Twin Peaks all the way through Fire Walk with Me, which will come up for next month's show, or next couple of months' shows. But that was an interesting experience. Another from all Twin Peaks. I will say that Fire Walk with Me is significantly darker than the series. If your appeal, what drew you to Twin Peaks was the more comedic elements, characters like Nadine and Deputy Andy, they are Sir and Lady not appearing in this film. You get the Log Lady, but it's mostly on focused on Donna and, of course, Laura Palmer.
And tenuous connection to Twin Peaks in that featuring Kyle MacLachlan. The Fall live action show on Amazon dropped, and it was an excellent. It wasn't an adaptation of the series. It was a series set in the same world, and they got the vibes right of dark and funny,
Absolutely.
and not letting either the dark bleakness or the humor dominate. So it was fantastic.
In terms of other animes that I've been watching, season 3 of Sound Euphonium. You may recall that I binged on all of Sound Euphonium a couple months ago.
And then she was just super excited. I'm like, honey, look, there's a third season!
I didn't have to wait very long. It was great. So that's a couple episodes in. It's still cute. Obviously, we're continuing with Dungeon Meshi, which is like one of my favorite things that have ever existed now. Just don't know how else to say it. And we watched all of the Apothecary Diaries, and it is just as good as everyone said. Oh my god, I kept looking over at David and being like, the piping hot tea is delicious.
Yeah, that is one of the Apothecary Diaries is one of the anime that I've watched with my parents, and they enjoyed it a great deal. So
Good.
Yeah, in fact, I'd almost say it's like it. Yeah, actually, we'll say it is definitely one of those. It is safe to watch if you're worried about a anime series that your parents might walk in on you watching. This one's fine for that.
Yes, thus far, totally fine.
And we watched something. We watched Ippon Again, this month's review show.
But before we get into that, also, when we were at the theater for Spy Family, we saw the trailer for the Haikyuu movie is finally coming out. The Dumpster Battle. And I'm very excited about that.
I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be great. And at the same time, speaking of anime movies, they just announced the Yuri on Ice has been canceled.
I'm very sad
And
about
I'm sad about that.
Yeah.
Happy news on one hand, sad news on the other.
How long?
It's been a long time.
Yeah. Well.
And of course, the Gundam SEED movie is finally out, touring through the U.S. at this point. Has not quite come to theaters where we are yet. That will happen in early May. But Yeah, that's another one that's been like almost 20 years to get out.
It didn't sound like your hopes were high.
I mean, when the primary writer of the series died in 2016, I kind of didn't expect it to. And it had been in development hell for ages, so I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it to actually finally come out. And from what I've heard, it's pretty, but maybe not. I will watch it. I will go in. I will not prejudge it, but from what I'm seeing, it's like it's definitely a movie.
It's okay, Bun. We'll always have G-Witch.
I have heard that Gundam Seed is a series that has diminishing returns over time.
Yeah. I will say, it's one of the things where, like, when the director and, like, the person in charge of making the show actually happen is also married to the head writer, it did not go well. There were far too many clip show episodes, which luckily the HD remasters, cut down on significantly.
Sounds like more of a production issue than a creative team issue. But is it because the writer was backed up and they were letting her have longer?
No, they were still keeping to that one episode a week. They just were using more and more reused footage.
So the whole team fell behind.
The whole team fell behind because going back to Shirobako, it was one of the things where the writer didn't finish, so everyone else was trying to work around it.
I'm so grateful we watched Shirobako, because now I know what the process is like.
It gives us so much
vocabulary
to use. Yeah. Seed, and even more so Seed Destiny, which switches protagonists midway through because the new ones weren't popular enough, so they go back to the original protagonists, and it's like, this would have been a lot less awkward if these guys weren't the antagonists up to this point.
Wow.
I have so many things. We could do an entire show on Gundam Seed.
David needs his own Gundam podcast. He has material for years.
Well, maybe once we finish JoJo, we might then go to Summer of Gundam. There is a Gundam tabletop role-playing game, so if we have to go all the way to if we have to stretch all the way to August, then it'll fit.
We might just have to play that game for research.
Why are you looking at me? You can't make me.
Well, in the meantime, though, let's go.
This month's episode.
Anime series that aired in 2023 in the winter season. It was produced by, let me pull up the credits here, Bakken Record was the key production studio, and is based on a manga by Yu Muraoka, which ran in Weekly Shonen Champion, which is notable because this is also the same magazine that Baki the Grappler runs in, which is totally the polar opposite. One is a heartwarming story of a girls' judo team, and the other is a mixed martial arts anime where one of the characters has the muscles on their back formed in the shape of a demon's face.
As one does.
And this is also not the first moderate to high profile girls judo anime. Before this was Yarowa, a fashionable judo girl, which was from the creator of Pluto, Naoki Urasawa. Well before he did Pluto, went from that, he did Master Keaton, and then went into Monster and into the territory of your suspense, thriller, mystery dramas. So, yeah, this is focusing on a high school girls judo team. I picked this series this month because we have, in a matter of weeks, the Summer Olympics happening, and women's judo is one of the events.
Yeah, getting into the show. It was enjoyable. Basically, nothing I can really say bad about it. It obviously feels incomplete because it only covers, like, I will say, I want more of it because it felt like only towards the end of the show did it feel like their story was actually getting started.
Yeah, so if you, it's hard not to compare sports anime for me because, and even sports movies in the United States, they're kind of formulaic. There's a setup, and there are certain types of characters that you see. Okay, so for me, it's really hard not to compare the first season of this show to, like, the first season of Haikyuu. And even though, like David said, I can't point to anything that I really disliked about it, I did feel that it was lacking in drama. You know, these girls are cute, and they get along, and that's great, and I enjoyed that. But I didn't feel like right up until the end, when the tournament started happening, we started being introduced to other judo teams, that there were, like, interesting, like, rivalries and conflicts that were going on, right? I kept looking at David like, where's the tea?
Yeah, there's no... Until the last few episodes, there's not really any conflict in the show. And with a sports... In general,
they almost get there in the middle, but then it just resolves very nicely and neatly.
Like,
and the most, like, the most flashpoint conflict is over a parfait, and they play it for laughs. Like,
the traditional struggle in pretty much every sports anime is the challenge against the rivals, of which we didn't really have any. There were other teams, but there weren't really the rivals. And then the internal struggle against oneself, to be better, to see one's flaws, and to overcome them.
You versus you.
And there was basically none of that. There was, I really like judo and I want to get better, but it's not, this is where I'm feeling, and I need to rise above that, or I need to move around it.
Maybe that's what the show was missing, was more failure. Because, I mean, yeah, they lose matches, but it doesn't seem like it harms them at all. And I'm not saying it should.
No,
I feel like they have a very healthy attitude toward the sport, but at the same time, it doesn't make for super compelling watching.
Yeah. I will also say that basically there's no heterosexual explanation for any of the character interactions. The sheer amount of time that these girls are grappling each other and then blushing afterwards, it's like, what? I mean, I've got no objections here. That's great. But what?
I was a little surprised to see in the credits that this was from a manga that ran in a shonen magazine. And I think is that just solely because it is sport focused? Because honestly, it felt pretty shoujo to me. It was about girls and their friendships, right? Like,
yeah, like I did, like, when I watched this originally, also, like, this feels like a shoujo manga.
Yeah.
But it just ran in Shonen Champion. That's why I brought up Baki the Grappler, because in some respects, Baki the Grappler is working in a similar space. A combat sports, mixed martial arts, though Baki the Grappler goes 100 times more gonzo, possibly more gonzo even than Fist of the North Star gets.
Oh, wow.
With its martial arts. No exploding heads, but, like, Baki goes places. And also, on the other hand, this is the same magazine that Yowamushi Pedal runs in. So, like, sports manga, like, they have plenty of sports manga here. I think it also shows, like, how, to a certain degree, some of the classic manga demographics are getting muddled. Mm-hmm. Plenty of women read Weekly Shonen Jump. Girls read Weekly Shonen Jump, and almost certainly also Shonen Champion. So it makes sense for this for if the editorial staff of Shonen Champions going, hey, we do actually have a pretty substantial female audience who's reading this. We have a submission for something that would appeal to that demographic, but also fits with what we're known for. Then let's run it. And it apparently certainly did well enough to get it, and someone to go, hey, let's do an adaptation of this.
And I'm all for that. I mean, market to people instead of to boys or girls. But I think it's also worth noting that another reason I was surprised to find that this was running in a boys' magazine is because there is no sexualization on display. Thankfully. And these characters, these girls, they're in high school. They talk frequently about the importance of only having 3 years of high school to do judo in, probably. But they are drawn young. Like, for anime, I would say that they're drawn more like typically you'd see middle schoolers drawn in anime than high schoolers. They're still kind of baby-faced is the style, and there's just no sexualization, which is great.
Oh, yeah. We are not objecting
no
to that
complaints
at all.
Yeah. Also, variety of body types as well, particularly once we start getting into the tournament arcs,
Yeah.
and where you start getting female characters. Like, this is actually something that from the bits and pieces I've seen of Yarawa, Fashionable Judo Girl, that Urasawa does as well, is having female judoka who are, frankly, built like a shithouse. They are they are big, they are stocky, and in a lot of the instances, this is shown as being not a cause for comedy or anything like that, but shown as this is an asset for them and makes them
it's a cause for their opponents to say, oh, crap.
I will say that did bug me, the lack of weight classes. It's like, you are sending these girls against people who are not only older than them, but about 50 pounds heavier. And, yeah.
I would like a little bit more explanation as to the rules of judo in the show, because they don't really bother to explain everything, and you pick it all up from context, and that's enough for general understanding. But it would have been nice to have a little explanation of how competitions work, what the classes are, and how the scoring is done.
I picked up some of the stuff from the scoring into the general, like the warning system. Like, you get 3 smaller points if you like do a throw, but it's or land a technique, but they're not like on their back.
Yeah.
And then the Ippon is just a win if you throw someone, they land on their back, and they're not like immediately able to roll to their feet or that sort of thing.
Seems like the goal is to flip the turtle.
Yeah, basically the goal is to flip the turtle, or pin the turtle for 20 seconds, which also, like, with my rewatch, I went to a pro wrestling event over the course of this past month, and the whole thing with pro wrestling is 3-second pin. And so it's interesting going to this like 20-second pin and going, oh, that is considerably more involved.
Yeah.
In terms of the pin time.
Well, it's a 20-second pin, because a 10-second gets you Wazari, and 2 Wazari is equal to an Ippon. So essentially, if you don't have to do 20 seconds straight. If you can do 2 10-second pins, you'll still take the win.
Yeah.
It is cumulative.
Yeah, I think part of the reason where the weight classes didn't necessarily come in as much is because the competitions we're seeing are not individual competitions; they are team elimination competitions for the 2 tournaments that we see. One is 3-person teams, and the other is technically 5-person teams, but our main character's high school fudges it, and a couple other ones fudge it a little bit too.
Because they don't have a sufficient number of...
I thought that was one of the more interesting aspects, was the strategy you have to put into your team lineup. I thought that was really cool.
At which point maybe there's a team weight limit? Or a team weight class? But no, because we see...
Unclear.
There is a like, 'cause out of curiosity, I went looking at what at a judo weight classes, and most of what I found for that stuff is individual competition for like um Olympic judo and that sort of thing. So this particular structure might be something Japan. I don't know if it's necessarily Japan specific, but doesn't come up as much outside of. I'm not seeing it as much in terms of documentation.
I also feel like I'm missing some kind of linguistic pun or context, because if you win with an Ippon, in numerous sports anime, I've heard people shouting "Mo Ippon," meaning "let's go again" or "one more time." So is that from the judo term, or is the judo term from that vocabulary? Like,
I suspect the term comes from judo or other martial arts sports like karate or jiu-jitsu, or it might even come up in sumo. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's where it came from there. I like the sound is like this is like one of those sports anime did really good job with the sound design. This what
excellent,
so that really,
totally agreed.
Yes.
like really benefits from having watching this with a good set of speakers, or if you don't have that, a good set of headphones, because with the sense of movement on the mat, and then the sound of impact with the throws and that sort of thing, really benefited the work and gave a sense of power to what these girls are doing.
Yeah. The actual judo itself was really gorgeously animated and made it seem really dynamic. And if you watch judo in real life, it can sometimes seem a little static and boring to watch, because so much of what they're doing is invisible to the naked eye, throwing muscle against muscle, and so you can sometimes get deadlock holds. But yeah, in the show, they did an amazing job of making it really fluid and dynamic, I thought.
I gotta say, I love the sound. It really brought me back to my teenage high school years.
Your own martial arts training.
Yeah. Especially the flaps onto the mat. It was different because we didn't use tatami mats. But yeah, that was fun.
So, I guess my next big question for this is probably the reason why I had this and the Sport Climbing Girls anime as picked for this month is both because they're upcoming Olympic sports, but also kind of how the anime gives a sense of how the sport is done, which could then be taken to watching it. So the next question coming out of this is this something where, I don't know if you have a Peacock subscription or not, because that's who has Olympic coverage in the US. Is this something where would you be interested in watching Olympic judo, like going to the Peacock app and saying, "Hey, record the judo events, please." We can.
Yeah, I mean, I watch judo, but I like watching sumo, so.
I think it definitely helps to have a little bit of context for what you're looking at. I don't think the average person would watch a sport that they had no idea how it worked. And so shows like this are really a great intro to sports and help you figure out what's going on. And then once you know what's going on, it becomes enjoyable because you can kind of guess at the outcome and see who's doing well and who's not doing well.
Even if terminology does not translate between languages.
Even if terminology does not translate. You kind of get what you're looking at. Like, I watch volleyball completely differently now that I've seen Haikyuu than I did before. So now I'll probably watch judo differently, too.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, I never really watched volleyball.
I'd actually be fun to watch.
Honestly, it's one of those things where I would much more rather be playing the sport than watching it.
That's completely fair. Yeah.
I've watched a fair bit of volleyball because that's one of the Olympic sports that gets the broadcast coverage, as opposed to judo, where it's either on a different channel or now it's on streaming.
I grew up watching ice skating, which was always equally about the sport and the drama surrounding the sport.
Oh, that's true.
The ice skating's all about the hot tea.
I want to say the first event I went to with your family was an ice skating one. So your mom was dragging everyone to.
That sounds.
And the entire time she was narrating, going on about the skaters, and I'm like, this is great.
You should have seen her when they changed the scoring system.
Oh man,
that does feel like
mostly bad until she got used to it.
okay.
That does feel a little bit like not gonna lie, a little bit of pro wrestling level drama there.
I know.
I mean, I've heard several times that people describing pro wrestling as a soap opera with body slams. So,
Yeah.
Like, I know, at least when I was growing up, pro wrestling was very polarizing because people either loved it or hated it. And I did not really care. Pro wrestling was not really my thing.
yeah.
I think pro wrestling and figure skating people have vehement opinions about because it is so performative. Like the artistry and technique, but especially your showmanship counts for a lot in those sports. And people have different opinions on that, you know? Some people think sports should only be about physical prowess. Other people really enjoy and appreciate showmanship.
I mean, is pro wrestling a sport?
I would consider pro wrestling a form of theater. A form of theater that requires tremendous amount of athletic ability.
Athletic ability and endurance of pain.
Yes.
The things I have seen of like the actual pure like physicality and the things that those wrestlers put their bodies through, it's like I've got nothing bad to say. Anyone who is that dedicated to anything automatically gets my respect.
Yep.
That's fair.
All right. So we've covered most of the bases for Ippon Again. Any other thoughts or about the show?
I liked it. I would definitely recommend people, recommend it for watching. But because there is like so very little conflict in it, and not that that is a bad thing, it does sort of limit what we can say about it.
That's true.
I think this is a good intro for some people. Like, a lot of people are leery of getting into anime in particular and sports anime because, there is a lot of stuff out there. But this one is just so unoffensive. Like, the character designs are great. The relationships of the characters are great. They show a variety of body types. The depiction of the sport is great. I would recommend this to someone who's like just starting out in anime as an example of like, this is what it can be like, and if you gravitate toward the good stuff, you get stuff like this.
It's not necessarily all like this, but it can be.
Yep.
But
I do hope that the manga gets picked up by somebody. Particularly this gets a second season. Alternatively, I would love
it'll get really good if it continues.
Yeah, because it stops at the point where like I can see some more really good stories and stuff coming in, like because with how our main characters fare in the big tournament as the climax of the season, where they go from that and the relationships they've built with other teams would go well. I would love to read the manga for this. Also, I would really love if say somebody like Discotech Media or Sentai were to license rescue Yaroa, fashionable judo girl, particularly considering how recently Naoki Urasawa's work has come back into the spotlight through Pluto and Monster getting license rescued on Netflix.
Maybe it'll come around.
Would be nice.
So, next month we start our summer of JoJo. We'll be splitting Diamond is Unbreakable into half. Originally it aired in 3 13-episode seasons, but I think for sort of a time management standpoint kind of thing, might work better splitting it into 2 chunks.
Question. We also... Okay, I'm going to say it. We're going to rewatch it anyways. The live-action adaptation of the first part of Diamond is Unbreakable.
We did watch that!
Oh! It was different, but enjoyable.
Okay, that might be something worth talking about if I can find a copy of it. In which case, we might also, for the second half, discuss a little bit of the Spoke Kisaribe Rohan.
Oh, man.
So...
I got thoughts, man. We got thoughts to talk about.
Yeah, so for the episode count, so yeah, the total number of episodes is about like 30, 38, 39, so we could do 24, so like 24 and 25, which is about it's just not 24, 25, but 20,
19 and 20?
19 and 20. There we go. That I can math.
I'm glad one of us can.
Yeah. So 19 and 20. That works. So the first half will take us through episode episode 19 works for a good place to breaking point, which is Shiguchi's Harvest Part 2.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good place to break it.
And
we can definitely talk a little bit about that.
And then we'll cover the back half on in June.
Awesome.
All right, and that series and Diamond is Unbreakable is streaming basically everywhere. It is on Netflix. It is on Crunchyroll. It is on, I believe, Hulu or Disney Plus if you're outside of the United States. So it is very easy to get a hold of in a streaming form.
I will say that it is absolutely amazing how JoJo is everywhere these days. When I was growing up, we had the original Stardust Crusaders adaptation, and that was it.
As someone who was introduced to JoJo via this podcast, I now see it. I see the references everywhere. I get it now. Literally everywhere. Okay, fine.
All right.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that should be it.
Yep, that should. So, if you enjoyed the podcast, please rate and review the show on your podcasting platform of choice. It helps us find new viewers and listeners. If you're watching the audio-only version on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified if when future episodes of my stuff go up. And consider backing the Patreon at patreon.com/count0or. Patreon backers get access to these show episodes a little early. And also all my other stuff up to a week in advance, and helps cover hosting costs. If a monthly subscription cost is not your thing, that's something you can do. I have a Ko-fi as well at ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/count0, which also, again, helping to pay for this, helps pay for hosting costs and all that sort of stuff.
Go engage with all of Alex's marvelous content. Yes.
All right. So, and again, see you. We'll be back next month.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Hope everybody's having a great spring.
Oh, I have to go pick up a bunch of pizzas.
We got
We've got friends and their kids coming over.
Oh man, yeah, I feel like there just wasn't too much to say about this one, right? I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it, but unless we go over the characters, all of whom are...
Yeah.
The closest thing to conflict was Sune's not inability to, talk to her mom about wanting to go to stay in judo, and then she just did it.
And then they
with
solved
her
it.
dad's support. And I'm like,
And then
that's great.
Hira had that conflict with the upperclassmen at her old school, but then They solved it. Yep. Everyone's fine.
Communication works.
Yeah. Yeah. The Wonder Kid. I love her, actually. Anna. Yeah. She was my favorite. But, yeah, David kept looking over at me going, there is no heterosexual explanation for this.
I want to spend time with my girlfriend. I need friends. James,
What's
not
the
again.
episode? I was like, frankly, it would be more interesting if one of them turned out to be gay, but I'm not holding out hope for that because...
Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.